James Martinez had been the perfect party soldier for 3 years. Never questioned orders, never broke ranks. But when they handed him that bill at midnight, everything changed. His single no vote would trigger a chain reaction that would reach all the way to the White House. On a cold December night in Washington, D.C., the corridors of the Capitol building were silent. It was past midnight, and most representatives were asleep in their homes. But the light was still on in Representative James Martinez's office. The 28-year-old young politician sat at his desk, examining the thick file that had been delivered to him by party leadership just a few hours earlier. This was the so-called Emergency Defense Authorization Act. James's fingers trembled as he turned the pages. This wasn't an ordinary defense budget. Hidden within were clauses that granted powers unlike anything he had ever seen before. Section 247(c), in cases of national security threats, local government authorities may be suspended at the federal level. Section 301(a), in the event of civil disorder, civil rights may be temporarily restricted. And worst of all, Section 404(b), media organizations may be brought under control for national security reasons. James felt sick to his stomach. This was one of the most dangerous pieces of text he had ever read. It directly contradicted the fundamental principles of the Constitution. But all the senior figures in his party were behind this bill. In fact, it was expected to pass unanimously in tomorrow morning's vote. When the phone rang, James startled. The caller was Party Whip Robert Kellerman. "James, son, how's it going? I hope you're ready for tomorrow's vote." Kellerman's voice was authoritative as always. "Sir, I'm reviewing this bill and I have some concerns," James said hesitantly. "Concerns? James, you've been a reliable member of our party for 3 years. You've never caused problems. Please don't start now." "But sir, these clauses can be interpreted very broadly. They could seriously limit civil rights." Kellerman's voice hardened. "James, this country's security is at stake. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions. You'll vote yes tomorrow morning. This isn't a request, it's an order." After the line went dead, James buried his face in his hands. When he entered politics, he wanted to serve his country. He wanted to do what was right. But now he found himself caught between party loyalty and personal values. As the hours passed, James read the file over and over again. He analyzed every clause, every word. And with each reading, it became clearer how dangerous this bill was. This wasn't just a defense budget, it was a tool that could undermine the democratic system. At 4 in the morning, James got up from his desk and walked to the window. The silhouette of the Washington Monument was visible in the first light of dawn. Throughout the city's history, brave people had made difficult decisions. From Abraham Lincoln to Franklin D. Roosevelt, leaders had sometimes made unpopular but right decisions. James's cell phone rang again. This time it was his wife Maria calling. "Carino, you're still at the office. You didn't come home." "I know, amor. I have to make a big decision." "What happened? I can tell from your voice that you're worried." James knew he couldn't tell Maria about the situation. This was a classified document and he couldn't share it with anyone, including his family. "It's just, there's a very important vote today. And my vote might matter." "James, you always do what's right. That's why I love you." Maria's words gave James strength. Yes, he always tried to do what was right. And now he had to do just that. As 6 o'clock in the morning approached, James had made his decision. It didn't matter what the party leadership said. It didn't matter what would happen to his career. What mattered was staying true to the Constitution and the oath he had sworn to the people. He returned to his desk and wrote a special note. This note explained the reasons for his decision. Then he reopened the file and marked every dangerous clause. If he was going to vote no, he had to be able to explain why to everyone. At 9 o'clock in the morning, as James walked toward the main hall of the Capitol building, his heart was beating rapidly. Party members he encountered in the corridors smiled at him friendly, making their morning greetings. None of them were aware of what he was about to do. When Kellerman saw him, he came over. "James, you look good. Are you ready?" "I'm ready, sir," James replied with a determined voice. "Great. This vote is very important for the party. The image of unanimity will show our strength." James just nodded. A storm was raging inside him, but he tried to appear calm from the outside. When voting time came, the hall was completely full. Media members were watching from the gallery. This was seen as a routine vote. No one expected any surprises. The Speaker of the House announced that voting had begun for the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. Names began to be called in alphabetical order. With each yes vote, James's heart began to beat faster. Representative Martinez, James. The moment came when his name was called. James stood up. The hall was completely silent. Everyone expected him to say yes. Party members were smiling. Kellerman gave him an approving look, but the word that came out of James's mouth shocked everyone: no. The hall instantly turned from silence to murmur. Whispers rose from the gallery. Party members looked at each other with surprised glances. Kellerman's face had turned red. When James sat down, Representative Sarachin next to him whispered, "James, do you know what you're doing?" "I know," James replied calmly. "I'm doing what's right." And from that moment on, nothing in James Martinez's life would ever be the same. When the voting ended, the result was announced, 434 to 1. The single dissenting vote came from James Martinez. This was a situation rarely seen in congressional history. A young representative standing alone against his own party sent shockwaves through Washington. As soon as the voting ended, James's phone started ringing. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal. Everyone wanted to learn the story behind this unexpected no vote. But when James returned to his office, he found the last person he expected at his door, Kellerman. "I want to see you in your office. Now." Kellerman's voice was filled with cold anger. When they entered James's office, Kellerman slammed the door shut. "I want an explanation, James. What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Sir, I voted according to my conscience. In accordance with my oath to the Constitution." "Constitution?" Kellerman laughed, but there was no humor in this laughter. "James, you're playing politics, not giving a civics lesson. This game has rules." "Sir, I read that bill. Every word of it. Those clauses are dangerous." "Dangerous?" "James, who are you? Did you become a constitutional scholar overnight?" James stood up. "Sir, I'm an American. And I'm a representative. My duty is to serve the people, not to blindly obey party leadership." Kellerman's face turned even redder. "Look, James, let me tell you something. We've been running this party for a quarter century. You still smell like mother's milk. Tomorrow morning you'll hold a press conference and announce that you made a mistake, that you were misinformed." "No." James's answer was clear. "No. No, sir. I won't make such an announcement. Because I didn't make a mistake." Kellerman approached James. "James, look, you're a young man. Your career is just beginning. But if you continue on this path, that career will be very short." "Am I facing a threat, sir?" "Not a threat, James. Reality. Politics is a team sport. If you go against the team, you sit on the bench. And sometimes you get kicked off the bench entirely." After Kellerman left, James sat at his desk and took a deep breath. The phone continued to ring, but he wasn't answering any of them. Instead, he began preparing a statement explaining the reasons for his decision. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, James's assistant Maria Santos, a different person despite having the same name as his wife, ran into the office. "Sir, you have a problem. A very big problem." "What happened?" Party Chair Richardson's office called. "They're removing you from all committees. Defense, Judiciary, Foreign Affairs. All of them." James expected this. "Anything else?" "Sir, your campaign funding is being cancelled. And, you won't receive party support for re-election." This was also expected. But the next news truly shocked him. "Sir, the major donors in your district are also stopping their support. Hennington Industries, Maxwell Corporation, Phoenix Development Group. They're all withdrawing their donations." Alarm bells started ringing in James's head. This wasn't normal party discipline. This was a coordinated operation. It wasn't possible for them to organize this quickly, unless it had been planned in advance. "Maria, is there anything else?" "Sir?" "Henderson and Amp, Associates, your wife's law firm, called. Mrs. Martinez's partnership review has been postponed." This had now become personal. James's wife Maria had been working at that law firm for 5 years and had fought hard to become a partner. This postponement was also jeopardizing her career, James thought to himself. This rapid and coordinated response showed how seriously they took the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. But it also proved how right James's decision was. At 3 o'clock, an unexpected visitor came to James's office, former Representative Thomas Wheeler. Wheeler was a veteran who had retired 10 years ago with 30 years of experience. "James, I came to talk to you." "Sir, about what?" "About what you did today. And about the consequences." Wheeler sat down and looked directly at James. "James, you took a big risk today. And you'll pay the price for this risk. But I came to tell you this, you did the right thing." "Sir? I read that bill too. I still have a copy in my office. And you're not the only one who could see the danger in that text." James's heart began to race. Are others worried too? "James, sometimes there's silent opposition in politics. Not everyone can express their opinion openly. But that doesn't mean they're not concerned." Wheeler handed James a business card. This is investigative journalist Rebecca Patterson's card. She's very experienced in these matters. I recommend you talk to her. Sir, why are you helping me? Wheeler smiled. Because James, 30 years ago I was in your position. I didn't have the courage then. But you did. And sometimes, one person's courage can change everything. After Wheeler left, James examined the card. Rebecca Patterson was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. She specialized particularly in government accountability issues. James picked up the phone and called Patterson. The phone rang twice before it was answered. Patterson. Ms. Patterson, this is Representative James Martinez. I heard that Thomas Wheeler said I could reach out to you. Representative Martinez, you want to talk about your vote today, I assume? Yes, ma'am. But this matter is very sensitive. Could we meet face to face? Of course. This evening at 7, let's meet at the coffee shop near Lincoln Memorial. There's a place called Constitution Cafe. I'll be there. After hanging up the phone, James looked out the window. The sun was setting and Washington's sky was turning orange and red. The decision he made today could affect not only his life, but perhaps the future of the country. His assistant Maria Santos entered the office again. Sir, your wife called. She wants to come home early. To talk to you. James nodded. He needed to talk to his wife. He knew this decision would affect her life too. Maria, that's enough for today. You go home too. Sir, there's a morning briefing tomorrow. You should prepare what you're going to say. I'm ready, Maria. I know what I'm going to say. As James began to clean up his office, he saw the Emergency Defense Authorization Act file on his desk. This document had changed the course of his life. But James wasn't sorry for the choice he made. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. When James Martinez arrived home, his wife Maria was waiting for him at the door. There was worry on her face, but also a kind of pride. Carino, I saw today's news. Todo el mundo is talking about you. James hugged Maria. Sé que esto es difícil para ti, amor. You'll have problems at work. James, I don't care about the partnership right now. You took a big risk. But I'm proud of you. While sitting at the dinner table, James told Maria what had happened. He couldn't share the details of classified documents, but he could explain the seriousness of the situation. This isn't just a protest vote, Maria. This bill is really dangerous. And they'll try to silence me. Pues que lo intenten, Maria said determinedly. We didn't come this far para que te asusts ahora. James felt strengthened by his wife's support. But at the same time, his phone rang. It was his mother, Rosa Martinez. Mijo, ¿qué está pasando? They're saying bad things about you on TV. Mama, everything is fine. I just voted according to my conscience. Pero James, they're saying que eres un traitor, que you betrayed the party. James took a deep breath. Mama, remember what I said? When I entered politics, I said it would be for the people, not for money. Today, I kept that promise. Ten cuidado, mijo. These politicians can be dangerous. At 7 in the evening, James arrived at Constitution Cafe near Lincoln Memorial. It was easy to recognize Rebecca Patterson, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She had a notepad and recorder in her hands. Representative Martinez? Ms. Patterson. Thank you for meeting me. The two sat at a table in the back corner of the cafe. Patterson got straight to business. Representative, today's vote was very interesting. 434 to 1. This is a rare thing in congressional history. Why did you decide to stand alone? James explained the details of the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. Every dangerous clause, every constitutional violation. As Patterson took notes, her eyes widened. Representative, these allegations are very serious. Do you have supporting evidence? James gave Patterson the copy document he had received from Wheeler. This is the full text of that bill. Examine it yourself. Patterson quickly scanned the document. My God. Section 247C. This is very close to martial law declaration. Exactly. And worst of all, these powers are very vaguely defined. They can be used for almost anything. Representative, do you know the pressures you're currently facing? Party funding, committee assignments, campaign support. All have been cut. I know. But this shows that I made the right choice. If it had been a regular bill, they wouldn't have shown such an aggressive reaction. Patterson laughed. Good point. James, I want to investigate this story. But I need to be honest, this could be dangerous. For you and for me. Ms. Patterson, if we don't expose this, who will? You're right. Well, we can start. First, we need to find out who authored this bill. The official sponsor is Representative Hardwick. But I don't know who the real authors are. Leave that to me. I've been working in DC for 20 years. I have sources. 2 days later, Patterson called James again. "Representative, I found very interesting things. The real authors of this bill are lobbyists from Meridian Systems Corporation, a defense contractor." Meridian Systems? I don't know them. It's a very big company, but they keep a low profile. They only work with government contracts. And guess what? If emergency powers are activated, they'll be the major beneficiaries. How? Infrastructure security, surveillance systems, civil order maintenance. They have almost a monopoly in these areas. A knot formed in James's stomach. So this entire bill was written for their profit? It appears so. And even more interestingly, in the last 3 years, Meridian has made major political donations. Guess who received them? Tell me. Kellerman, Richardson, and other party leaders. A total of $2.3 million. This revelation shocked James. "Ms. Patterson, can you publish this information?" "I can, but I need more evidence. And your official statement." "What kind of statement?" "Complete explanation of your vote. Technical details, constitutional concerns, everything." That evening, James prepared a long statement. Quotes from constitutional law, historical precedents, and detailed analysis. This statement showed that he wasn't just a rebellious politician, but had made an informed and principled decision. The next morning, Patterson's story was published in the Washington Post. The headline read, "Defense Bill Hides Unprecedented Executive Powers, Lone Dissenter Claims." An hour after the story was published, James's phone started ringing nonstop. This time it wasn't just local media, but national networks, international press, and social media influencers were also calling. Kellerman called James to his office at noon. This meeting was very different from previous discussions. "James, do you know what the hell you've done? That article in the Washington Post. This is a disaster for the party." "Sir, I just told the truth." "Truth? James, you leaked classified information. This could be a felony." "Sir, that document wasn't classified. It's public record." "But your interpretation? You're creating conspiracy theories." At this point, Kellerman's assistant entered with an urgent message. "Sir, the White House called. The president wants a briefing about this controversy." Kellerman's face went pale. "James, now the real trouble begins." But James was no longer afraid. The truth had begun to emerge, and there was no turning back. "Sir, I just did my duty. If this is creating controversy, maybe the problem is with the bill itself." That afternoon, major constitutional law scholars began making statements on TV supporting James's concerns. Professor Jennifer Walsh from Harvard said on CNN, "Representative Martinez raised legitimate constitutional questions. These powers definitions are too broad and dangerous." In the evening, when James returned home, Maria greeted him with excitement. "James, look at the internet. You're trending on social media. The hashtag #StandWithMartinez hashtag is going viral." When James opened his laptop, what he saw amazed him. Thousands of supportive messages, analyses from constitutional scholars, and most importantly, private support messages from other Congress members. A text had come from Representative Sarah Chen. "James, you were brave to do what many of us couldn't. Thank you." From Representative Michael Torres, "Ese bill me worried Haitian. You did the right thing, hermano." James realized he was no longer alone. And tomorrow, the real battle would begin. On the morning of the third day, the political atmosphere in Washington had completely changed. James Martinez's no vote and the subsequent revelations had shaken the entire political establishment. On morning news shows, constitutional experts were analyzing the dangerous provisions of the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. When James arrived at his office, his assistant Maria Santos greeted him with excitement. "Sir, incredible news. Last night 5 more representatives publicly announced their support for your position." "Who?" Representative Chen, Torres, Williams, Jackson, and, the biggest surprise, Representative Patricia Walsh. Walsh's support was particularly significant because she was a senior Republican and very close to party leadership. Her public statement had created a real shockwave. "There's more, sir. 47 constitutional law professors have published a joint letter. They're saying the bill is dangerous and needs thorough review." James sat at his desk and took a deep breath. "Maria, how are the phone calls?" "Sir, incredible. Since yesterday evening we've received 847 supportive calls. There were only 23 negative calls. And constituent emails? There's overwhelming support." At this point, James's private line rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Representative Martinez?" "Yes." "Sir, this is retired General Patricia Anderson. I need to speak with you urgently." "General Anderson? Are you calling from the military?" Sir, I'm currently calling in a civilian capacity. But your concerns about that bill, they also exist in the military community. Really? Sir, could we meet face to face? This is too sensitive to discuss on the phone. 2 hours later, James had a secret meeting with Anderson near the Pentagon. Anderson was in her 60s, a decorated veteran who had worked in senior positions in the military. Representative, that bill you exposed. It's also creating concern in military leadership. How? Sir, those emergency powers bypass civilian oversight. The military must be accountable to civilian authority. This is our fundamental principle. Anderson gave James a confidential document. This is a statement from retired military officers. There are 340 signatures. James read the document. Former generals, admirals, and senior officers were declaring their opposition to the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. This was unprecedented. General, why isn't this being made public now? Representative, the military can't get involved in active politics. But retired officers, we can speak as private citizens. That afternoon, Anderson's statement was leaked to CNN. It was broadcast as breaking news. 340 retired military officers oppose Defense Authorization Act. This development changed the entire conversation. This was no longer just young politician versus party establishment. This was a national debate about constitutional principles. When James returned to his office, an unexpected visitor was waiting, House Speaker Nancy Richardson herself. This meeting was very unusual because Richardson normally didn't have direct meetings with representatives. Representative Martinez, I need to speak with you urgently. Ma'am. James, the situation is getting out of control. Military involvement, media coverage, public pressure. This is very damaging for the party. Ma'am, I just told the truth. Richardson leaned on the desk. James, we need to find a political solution. We can withdraw the bill, but you also need to publicly support party unity. Ma'am, isn't this too late? It's already become a national issue. James, nothing is irreversible in politics. But compromise is necessary. At this point, James's phone rang. It was Rebecca Patterson. Representative, there's urgent news. Meridian Systems CEO Marcus Thorne has announced his resignation. And the FBI has launched an investigation into corruption allegations. Richardson heard this conversation and her facial expression completely changed. Representative, you can take this call later. Ma'am, this is a development you should know about. James shared the information he learned from Patterson with Richardson. Meridian Systems investigation, lobbying violations, and potential bribery charges. Richardson's political calculations changed instantly. James, the situation has become very complicated. I'll have an emergency meeting with leadership. In the evening, something extraordinary happened. House leadership called an emergency session and announced the indefinite postponement of the Emergency Defense Authorization Act. The official reason, additional constitutional review required. This announcement created a political earthquake. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News all dedicated their primetime programs to the James Martinez story. When James returned home, Maria was in a celebratory mood. Carino, you did it. The bill has been stopped. See amor, pero este es just the beginning. Real change requires much more work. That night, James received hundreds of congratulatory messages. Support messages even came from former presidents. President Carter's message was particularly moving. Democracy requires brave individuals like you. The next morning, James wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, Why One Vote Mattered, Democracy Requires Courage. In the article, he wrote, Democracy is not automatic. Each generation, brave individuals stand up to protect our constitutional principles. Yesterday, 434 representatives voted for convenience. I voted for conscience. And sometimes, conscience wins. The article went viral and attracted international media attention. BBC, Le Monde, Deutsche Welle all covered the story. 2 weeks later, FBI investigation results were announced. Meridian Systems executives were arrested on corruption charges. Kellerman and other party leaders were taken into ethics investigation. And most importantly, comprehensive lobbying reform legislation was introduced. James's political career didn't end the expected way. Instead, he became a national hero. In the 2024 elections, he was re-elected by an overwhelming margin. And many young politicians began to follow his example. Maria's law firm partnership was also restored, and she became managing partner. Rosa Martinez proudly told her neighbors about her son, Mi hijo did the right thing, siempre. Months later, James testified at a congressional hearing about new ethics rules. In his closing statement, he said, Mr. Chairman, the most important lesson I learned is this: democracy is fragile. But it survives when brave individuals stand up for truth. My single vote that day was not against my party, it was for my country. The audience gave a standing ovation. And at that moment James realized that sometimes, doing the right thing requires standing alone. But when you stand for truth, eventually, you don't stand alone anymore. Years later, the Martinez vote was taught as a case study in political science classes in textbooks. And every year, James's story was told as an example at new representatives' orientation. Political courage is rare. But when it happens, it changes everything. James Martinez proved that one person, one vote, one moment of courage can alter the course of history. And sometimes, that's all democracy needs, just one person brave enough to say no when everyone else says yes.